All right, let's get
Okay.
started. I'll pass it off to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Auren, and thank you everyone who made it here. I already saw in the chat that we have people from all over the world with us. How exciting. Thank you for making time and joining us today. It's the second AHA seminar series of 2026, and we host this series every 2 weeks. And my name is Jennifer Pfister. I'm the program manager of the Advancing Humans with AI program. And for those of you who don't know much yet about the AHA program, short for Advancing Humans with AI, we are a research program at the MIT Media Lab that addresses the very timely and important question of how can we actually ensure that AI genuinely serves human flourishing. And as I mentioned, our seminar series happens bi-weekly, and it's one platform where we really want to dig deeper and explore this larger question that we're addressing. So for that purpose, I'm super grateful and excited that Michelle Vaccaro is joining us today. Michelle is a PhD candidate here at MIT at the Institute for Data, Systems, and Society. And her research focuses on human AI interactions and also looks at how people and AI should and also should not work together in organizations. She happens to be the first author of a large systematic review that explored that question when the combination of humans and AI are useful. And that research was published in Nature Human Behaviour with extensive media coverage by Psychology Today, Forbes, and other outlets. And also important to mention, Michelle holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from Harvard, where she graduated summa cum laude with highest departmental honors. So thank you, Michelle, for being with us. And before I hand it over to you, I just wanted to say very quickly that you can ask your questions in the chat anytime. Michelle said that she's comfortable with pausing anytime. So please don't be shy. It's so amazing that we have such fantastic speaker with us. So please ask everything in the chat and I'll be keeping track of that. And we want to make sure that all your ideas and questions are heard. So with that, I hand it over to you, Michelle.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for that very kind introduction, Jenny. As Jenny said, my name is Michelle Vaccaro, and I'm a fifth year PhD candidate at MIT in the Institute for Data, Systems, and Society. And so my research is really centered around human AI interaction. And I'm really interested in this question of when combinations of humans and AI are useful, which inspired the title of this paper. I did include a QR code at the bottom of this slide in case you want to scan the QR code and look at the full paper. But I'll provide an overview of the paper in this presentation. And if you have any questions, like Jenny said, please feel free to just put them in the chat and interrupt me at any time. I want this to be really interactive. And so I'm curious to hear your reactions to this work. Okay. So with that, I just want to provide a quick overview of what this presentation is going to look like. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the motivation for this project, so why it's important to study human AI systems and how they've traditionally been studied in the past. And then I'm going to talk about how we took a slightly different approach. So we decided to use a systematic literature review and meta-analysis to really answer the questions that are about this study, and that we decided to frame the study around. And then I'm going to talk about the results of the study. So what were the overall levels of human AI synergy that we found across a bunch of different studies and different tasks, and what moderates human AI synergy in these contexts. And then I'm going to end with what was actually one of my favorite parts of the paper to write, and that one of the parts that I'm especially keen to get all of your feedback on, and it's the future research. So, okay, what should we do next? How should we better study human AI systems to really promote this human flourishing? Okay. So with that, I just want to go into the motivation of this project. I think this audience might not need convincing about why it's important to study human AI systems, but I just want to talk a little bit about it so that we're all on the same page. So we see tremendous potential in human AI systems, given the complementary strengths of humans and AI systems. So we as humans, we have what we think of as common sense, so we can reason across diverse and different types of problems, and understand what happens when problems shift in the middle of the course, and as we're trying to solve them. And then AI systems, for their part, they have a lot of computational power, which enables them to perform specific, repeatable tasks and increasingly complex tasks as these AI systems are advancing so quickly, and to do so at scale, so with remarkable consistency and with remarkable speed. So, by collaborating, by combining human common sense, human specialized knowledge, and unique human abilities with these unique and growing AI capabilities, we can collaborate with each other and achieve things that really neither we as humans could achieve alone or AI systems by themselves could achieve alone either. And in line with this reasoning, a lot of high stakes domains have started to integrate AI into their workflows. So healthcare is one prominent example. AI is being used to support diagnoses and provide clinical recommendations. Finance is another well-documented domain where AI is making a large impact for risk analysis, fraud detection, and just general portfolio insights. The law is another quite prominent domain that's gained increasing attention, especially over the past couple of years, as generative AI is used to help with legal research, case analysis, and just general document review. And there's so many other domains, and people are just increasingly using AI in their everyday life. So it's really important to understand how people can better collaborate with these systems to achieve outcomes that are aligned with their interests. Okay, so there have been a lot of studies about human AI interaction, again, inspired by this vision. And there are a lot of different methodologies that people have used, but I think the three biggest ones are, one of them is theoretical models. So this involves people developing very specialized theoretical models about how people incorporate AI advice or recommendations into their own decision-making process. And these are really important and useful, but they're not going to be the focus of this study. There's another type that's maybe even a little bit more prominent in the field than theoretical models, and that's these qualitative studies. So these are very specialized deep dives into a particular scenario. So they typically involve these relatively long and again, in-depth user studies with interviews, with observations, again, in a very stylized domain. And again, these are very useful, but are not the focus of this study. We're going to focus on in this study is controlled experiments. And this is perhaps the most prominent method that's been used to study human AI systems. And one of the benefits of these controlled experiments is that it allows us to get a precise causal estimate of the effect of using AI relative to either having an AI do a task alone or having a human do a task alone. And so a bunch of researchers over the past years have conducted controlled experiments about and evaluating human AI systems across a lot of different tasks, contexts, and scenarios. Okay, so what have these experiments found? And the results were actually quite mixed. So here's an example of one study. This was a particularly prominent study in the HCI literature. And this study did not find evidence of human AI synergy, and it also found that AI explanations didn't help people better use AI in their decision-making process. But then another prominent study, also from the human AI interaction literature, it also didn't find evidence of human AI synergy, but this study did find that AI explanations were helpful. So AI explanations did help people better use the AI system. And then another quite prominent study, this time from the medical literature, this study did find evidence of human AI synergy, and it also found that AI explanations were helpful in helping people better incorporate, better use these AI tools to make better decisions. But then another study, this one is from the management literature. So it also found human evidence of human AI synergy, but this study did not find evidence that AI explanations were helpful in helping people better use AI systems. So basically, the takeaway, what I want you to take away from this slide is that the results in the empirical literature are definitively mixed, which makes it hard for individuals, but also organizations to think about how they can and how they should use AI in their workflows and in their everyday lives. And this inspired our approach, which was slightly different. So we wanted to zoom out. So zoom out of not just one particular context, but look at a broad variety of contexts and quantitatively synthesize this really large body of empirical literature that's been conducted over the past years and use this approach to answer three main questions. So the first question that we wanted to address was this question of synergy. So this is a question about when do humans and AI actually complement each other? And then the second question we wanted to address was driving factors. So what are the factors that impact human AI synergy? And it can explain the mixed empirical findings that exist in the literature. And then finally, we wanted to use this synthesis to think about the future. So how should we design future experiments in the field, given all of the experiments that have been conducted in the past, so that we can learn the most and so that these experiments can be most useful and most valuable, again, for both individuals, but also for organizations. And to do this, we decided to use a systematic literature review and meta-analysis. Before I go into the details about the methods of both of these, I just want to pause briefly here for any more questions about the setup or for any questions about the setup.
There was one
Okay.
question. I'm not sure if you can see it. There's like this
Okay.
Q&A
Right.
box, but I'll read them to you.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
Julie is asking, can you define AI explanations?
Yes, so this is just they can take a wide variety of forms, but what they typically look like is let's say that you're working with a medical diagnosis system, and the medical diagnosis system says, "Oh, this chest X-ray shows the presence of pneumonia." Then it might say, "This is why the AI system thinks that this chest X-ray shows some presence of pneumonia." So it's basically explaining why the AI system made the decision that it did. And so sometimes these can involve just text, sometimes they can involve some visual imagery. So in this medical example, sometimes there's a box basically highlighting the specific region that shows the presence of pneumonia in the X-ray. Um, yes, does that help answer the question?
Sounds
Okay,
good to me. Thank you. I see. Yeah, Julie
great.
said it helped. Thank you. No open questions for now.
Okay,
So I think we can keep going.
awesome. Great. Then I will go into the methods that we used. Okay. So we decided to use a systematic literature review and meta-analysis to help us answer these questions. And this process really involved four main steps. So the first was a pretty comprehensive search. So we made a keyword. We consulted a bunch of people in the field, a bunch of domain experts, and then we searched a bunch of different databases for studies that involved a human doing a task, an AI system doing a task, and a human AI combination doing a task in some empirical setting. So again, this is the controlled experiment. So through this database search, we gathered quite a lot of papers, and then we screened each of them to basically make sure that they had an original human subjects experiment in which a human did a task alone, an AI system did a task alone, and a human AI system, so the combination, did a task together. And then we extracted information from each of these papers. So there were over 106 experiments in our data set, and we extracted over 370 effect sizes. And this is because some papers and some papers had multiple experiments, and some experiments had multiple conditions. And then using this data, we analyzed it in a three-level meta-analytic model. So in this presentation, I don't go into the details about the model, but essentially you can think of it as a way of synthesizing all of these results from all of these different experiments and effect sizes. Okay. So here, sorry, this was just me going through each of those steps. And then this approach enabled us to calculate two main outcomes. So the first was human AI synergy, and this was our main outcome of interest. And again, human AI synergy is when the human AI system performs better than both humans alone and also AI alone. And this is our main outcome of interest because if a human could do a task better than a human AI combination, or an AI system could do a task better than a human AI combination, then it would make sense to just have either the human or the AI system do the task themselves rather than having them collaborate with each other. That said, in some cases, especially some of these high stakes domains that I mentioned a little bit earlier in the presentation, full automation might not be necessary, it might not be desirable, and it might not be possible. So we also calculated a secondary outcome measure, and that was human augmentation. So this is when the human AI system performs better than just the human alone. And this measure could also be useful for just providing a baseline comparison of human AI synergy to human augmentation, which is one of the things we do. So these were our two main outcomes of interest. Okay, so what do we find? Well, we've noticed that most studies that we evaluated, they framed their results around human augmentation. And in most of these studies, they did find human augmentation. So human augmentation was relatively common. Again, this is when the human AI systems, on average, that means they performed better than both they performed better than humans alone. So this was part one of our findings. But then we looked at human AI synergy, and we found a pretty different picture. So we found that human AI synergy was actually surprisingly rare. So on average, across all of these different human AI systems, the human AI system performed worse than either humans alone or AI alone. So in other words, in most of these studies, it would have been more effective to have either a human do a task alone or an AI system do a task alone, rather than have them collaborate with each other. And we were somewhat surprised by this finding, which inspired our moderator analysis. So we did find substantial heterogeneity across all these effect sizes. So you can see that there are some effect sizes that are green, so that are evidence of positive human AI synergy, and then there's some that are red that are evidence of negative human AI synergy. So we were curious, what are the factors that drive these different levels of human AI synergy? And that was what our moderator analysis did. So there's a lot of information on this chart over here. So I just want to break everything down a little bit on the next couple slides. So the most important moderator that we found was actually the relative to performance of the human versus AI system. So in other words, who performs better alone? And here we found that when an AI system performed better than a human performed alone, then actually there was negative synergy. So, oh, sorry. I just realized I missed a question. Why did you choose these three databases? And what was the reasoning behind not including other databases or platforms such as IEEE? So IEEE was actually covered in the Web of Science. So we did incorporate, that was incorporated in all of these, in all of this search. We didn't do archive in Google Scholar because we wanted to focus our analysis on results that had been published and had gone through the peer review process just as a quality measure. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Great, okay. So yes, so the relative performance of humans versus AI alone was a significant moderator. And our intuition behind this is that on tasks where AI performed better than humans alone, humans were generally, so when humans, in other words, were worse than AI, they were also not particularly good at using AI. So they weren't good at using AI to beat the AI system. The AI did help the humans perform better than they would have alone, but they weren't able to reach the level of the performance of the AI alone. In contrast, in tasks where humans were better than AI, they were also better at using AI to help them make decisions and help them, or in general, just perform the task. And our intuition behind this is that if a human were using an AI system, then even if the AI wasn't quite as good at doing the task alone, if a human were able to strategically use the AI system, they could still boost their overall performance. And that's what we see in these empirical results. Okay, So the second moderator that we found that was quite important was the type of task. And so what does that look like? Well, we classified each of the tasks into two broad types. And this is based on literature and actually the human interaction literature. So in these two types of tasks, they're decision tasks and creation tasks. So decision tasks are tasks that involve choosing, making a decision among some set of alternatives. And we found that most of the studies in our meta-analysis were focused on these types of decision tasks. Um, but we found that in these decision tasks, we didn't find evidence of human AI synergy. So the overall effect size, which is G over here, was negative. And our intuition behind this is that these decision tasks, they don't divide as naturally into subtasks. So oftentimes the decision tasks in this literature was really focused on having a human do a task alone, so a human make a decision alone, an AI decision make a decision alone, and then providing the human AI combination. What it would do is the human would see the advice from the AI system and then somehow loosely incorporate it into their own decision to help them, in theory, make a better decision than they would have otherwise, but oftentimes not make a better decision than the AI did on its own. So an example of a decision task could be something like you are trying to say, to go back to the chest ray example, you're trying to say, does this X-ray show presence of pneumonia or not? Whereas a creation task could be something like you need to write a story about some type of topic, or you should create some type of advertising image. Um, those would be some examples of decision versus creation tasks. Okay, I see another question. Was HCI an educational process studied, or are those mostly productivity and industry tasks? So we had a mix of studies. So we had a lot of HCI studies featured in the studies that we evaluated, and we also had some that were more management focused. And that was one of the things we wanted to do in our meta-analysis was to bridge these literatures because traditionally the HCI literature had been in one sphere, the management literature had been in another sphere, the medical literature had been in another sphere, but they were all looking at the same question, and that was this question of human AI collaboration. And I think one of the most surprising findings was just this level of or the lackluster results when it comes to using AI. So, in the fact that the human AI synergy on average was not present in most of these studies. And that was true again in HCI, that was true in medicine, and that was true in management. Okay, great. So yes, so decision tasks, the results were quite lackluster. The results for creation tasks were actually much more promising. So again, these are tasks that involve some type of open-ended response, like writing a story, like creating an advertisement, or even coding we would classify as a creation task because it involves some type of open-ended response. And in these creation tasks, they were not as widely studied. But among these creation tasks, we did find evidence of human AI synergy. And our intuition here is that creation tasks, they more naturally divide into subtasks. So to use the writing example, you could say, write the introduction. You could give a generative AI system some paper and say, write the introduction for this paper. And then iteratively refine the introduction through a series of interactions, with each of these interactions being some different subtask. Or for coding, you could say to a generative AI system, write this particular function, and I'll write the rest of the functions. So essentially what this allows is it allows humans to do what humans are best at and AI systems to do what AI systems are better at, and so that the combination is better than each of the individuals working alone. Okay, I see another question. Were AI versus humans just as successful at decision tasks, or was one generally better at making decisions than the other? AI was generally better at these decision tasks than humans were alone. And again, this is across all the studies that we looked at. That's not to say that AI is better at making decisions than humans, but in the subset of studies that we looked at, the AI systems that were specifically designed for these specific situations were on average, not always, but on average, better than humans were alone. Okay, great. One of the other interesting things about this moderator analysis was the surprisingly insignificant moderators. So several factors that have received a lot of attention in the HCI literature in particular, we found did not significantly impact human AI synergy. So one of these was actually AI explanations. So providing the rationale for AI decisions, it actually didn't lead to statistically different outcomes in human AI synergy. Similarly, AI confidence score. So this is showing the AI's confidence level about its decision. We found that it actually didn't have a significant impact on human AI synergy either. And then when it came to the type of participants, the type of human making the decision and using AI, we found that participant expertise, so experts versus non-experts, there was no difference in their levels of human AI synergy. And then similarly for recruitment source, whether or not the people were recruited through a crowdsourcing platform or not, again, there was no evidence that this factor significantly impacted human AI synergy. Okay, so what are the takeaways? Where does this leave us? What should we do going forward as we study human AI collaboration? Well, we recommend four key directions for the future based on several gaps identified in our meta-analysis. And one of the main ones is this really focusing on a study of creation tasks. So again, very few of the effect sizes, very few of the studies in our analysis were evaluating creation tasks. The focus had really been on decision tasks. But these creation tasks showed the most promise for human AI synergy. And the rise and the quick pace at which these generative AI models are advancing, we think it opens some really exciting possibilities for collaboration with these types of models in this domain. And so what does that look like? Here are a couple of research questions that I'm personally particularly excited about. So one of these is how do different AI capabilities map on to different human AI capabilities? So for example, if ChatGPT gets 10% better at a task, do I, using ChatGPT, get 10% better at the task? Do I get 5% better? So not everything's not quite as good. Do I get 20% better? Is there some nonlinear relationship between the growth in AI capabilities and the growth of human AI capabilities? And then second, which domains benefit most from human AI collaboration? Again, even within this sphere of creation tasks, is it writing? Is it designing? Is it coding? And what does it look like across these different domains? And then also, how do different collaborative processes, for example, drafting, revising, selecting, or co-creating, impact human AI synergy or more generally moderate human AI synergy? Okay, so in this vein of focusing on these collaborative processes, we encourage a focus on the process beyond the sphere of creation tasks. Because right now, especially in decision tasks, AI is positioned really as an advisor. And we see an exciting future where the positioning is not quite as static. So there's a more complex process involved by which humans and AI collaborate. And this involves strategically allocating different subtasks to humans or AI, depending on which is best suited for each of the subtasks. So for example, this could involve a human revising some type of AI generated content. So an AI doing the first draft, a human revising the second draft, and then doing some iterative process involving the two. Or it can involve an AI system generating a bunch of different drafts and then a human selecting, not even revising, just selecting among the best of those drafts. Or it can involve some more complex decomposition and allocation. So splitting different subtasks by different human AI strengths and allocating the tasks that humans are best suited for to humans and allocating the tasks that AI systems are best suited for to AI systems. So essentially what we really want to say is we want to shift the question from should humans use AI to how should humans use AI? And then we also think, again, in the course of all of this, it's important to develop more robust metrics for evaluating human AI collaboration. So most of the studies in the meta-analysis, they evaluated performance according to accuracy. Um, and accuracy or quality, which we can think of as some form of accuracy. But problems have many more dimensions than just accuracy. And in this vein, we really want to encourage more robust evaluation that involves things like composite metrics. So these could be weighted scores that reflect real world stakes, like trade-offs between time, cost, and quality. Or asymmetric cost errors. So, for example, weighing false negatives and false positives differently depending on the domain. So, depending on the practical implication of what a false positive or a false negative is, again, in that specific domain. And then also developing process metrics that measure not just the output of the collaboration, but the process of the collaboration itself. And then finally, we want to encourage more cross-study standards to facilitate future research synthesis like this one. So this could involve standardized benchmarks, so having a common set of tasks to evaluate human AI collaboration on. And this would likely involve collaborations between different types of fields. So between the HCI field, between the medical field, between the management field. But by having this common set of tasks, it could facilitate more meaningful cross-study comparisons. And then also having more open repositories or reporting repositories. So having a shared database of different effect sizes, different methods, and different participant details that can facilitate more fine-grained moderator analysis about when human AI combinations are or are not more useful. And then also having more transparent protocols. So really encouraging the adoption of pre-registration open reporting standards for human AI experiments so that more experiments report more data more transparently. And then finally, aligning publication incentives to to reward and facilitate cross-country or cross-study standards and comparable replicable designs between different types of studies. Okay, I think I had 40 minutes and I see that I'm just about out of time. So I just want to pause and briefly say thank you. Thank you so much. Um, and yes, please feel free to ask questions or offer more comments really at any time. You can also feel free to email me. I'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts about this work. We're thinking of doing some extensions right now, and we're planning what those look like. So your feedback would just be especially appreciated. So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And it was really amazing how you were, presenting and at the same time also taking the questions. I didn't even have to do anything. Please, everyone, just to echo what Michelle said, please ask your questions if you have any clarifying questions or anything you're curious about. I'll definitely also start, with implications. I'm just curious, like you doing that research, how has it changed your way of collaborating with AI, just to make it very practical? What does it mean to you now? Has anything changed for you? My first question, but also actually I'm curious. It might be very basic question, but I think it's still also important to talk about when you say AI, like which AI do you mean
Mhm.
in your personal use? Because I'm now thinking, okay, like how do I even know which AI to use and how would I measure it? I'm just curious how you think about those things in your day to day.
Yes, no, both great questions. I think I'll answer them in reverse order because that might make my answer to the first question make a little bit more sense. So yes, we used a very broad definition of AI in this study. So basically anything we actually went back to Minsky's definition of AI. So anything that really tries and simulates human intelligence. So this meant that we involved generative. So we evaluated studies that use generative AI systems like these large language models or like these text to image generation models. But we also did more basic forms of AI. So there were a lot of ML models about evaluated or that were used in the studies that we looked at. And there were some very simple models, so some simple regression-based models that were also used. Um, Okay, so that's AI. So how has it changed how I use AI? And I think it's made me be more strategic about what type of AI system I use when. So for example, I'm TAing one class right now, and it's product marketing and analytics. So it's for MBA students. And a lot of MBA students, they actually don't have they don't come in with strong programming backgrounds, but we encourage them to use generative AI to help them be better programmers. And it's really impacted how I try and encourage these people to use generative AI and to be very thoughtful about having the AI system do perhaps the first draft, but how they need to critically evaluate it because especially for some of the tasks that we ask them to do, it makes mistakes. So to be thoughtful and critical and really ask the AI system to do what it's best at and focus on what they are better at. So what that looks like in practice is telling them they need to understand the problem at a very in-depth level. And then after understanding the problem, they can understand what instructions to give a large language model to maybe produce some type of code to help them build, I don't know, like a predictive model to answer some of the questions. In our class. Does that help answer your questions?
Yeah, and thank you so much for giving a very concrete example. I am gonna now turn to the chat. First of all, I would like to give everyone the opportunity that if you want to unmute yourself and ask your own question yourself, you just need to click on the raise hand button at the lower level of the Zoom chat in the middle, raise hand, and then you can unmute, we can unmute you to give you the floor. But in the meantime, I'll just read aloud Isabel's question. She is asking about the implications on education. How do you envision the transformations in the role of the teacher and the student with these results in mind? So kind of timely that you just talked about your TA position, but like, can you say more about how you think about the future, broader speaking?
Yes, no, and I think it's such an important question because I think one fear could be the skill atrophying. So if we aren't teaching people to do very basic, or not even very basic, but to use critical thinking skills, then that might atrophy and might lead to bad downstream consequences. So I think what people in education really need to think about is thinking about two things. So one of them is helping people better use AI systems, but helping them not just use the AI systems of today, but helping them use the AI systems of 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And that involves critical thinking. So that involves knowing how to figure out what an AI system is good at and what it's not good at. And typically, and this echoes the results from the meta-analysis, that involves some level of being good at the task on your own. Um, so I would say that it's important to help people again, still learn how to do everything that they had learned in the past, but also helping them use AI to maybe do it quicker or at a greater scale. Um, so really just it's not really making education saying you should remove anything from education. It's really and you should add things to the education system.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Jess was asking, are there any cross-domain standard or related efforts that you're particularly excited about or seem relevant to you or see as being overlooked and it would be wise to highlight for future exploration?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that there is a lot of room for growth when it comes to the cross-domain standards for really facilitating these cross-study comparisons. I think one area that I'm excited about, this isn't so much in the cross-domain standard, but it's a related effort and it's registered reports. So what registered reports are for those of you who aren't as familiar with them is it's basically when a researcher will submit what's like a plan of study. And then the journal will unconditionally accept the results. Will say, we will publish the study without seeing the results. And so what this does is basically it promotes good good empirical design that are not results contingent. Because one of the issues and one of the dangers of the publication process is that you have some bias in the results that are shown. So, for example, we are concerned that actually these results might be a little overly optimistic about the role of AI, and that if a bunch of researchers did a study and we're like, hey, a human did a task alone, an AI system did a task alone, but the human AI system, it actually didn't do better than either the humans or AI alone. Some some venues might not want to publish those results. And registered reports can address that bias. So that's an area that I'm really excited about, and I hope that more journals will do that, and I hope that actually more CS conferences will do that too. That's something that's been more in the social and behavioral science literature and less so in the HCI literature.
Great observation. And someone was asking, is there any evidence that AI reacts negatively to inferior human participation?
Ooh, okay. I like this question because it aligns a little bit with another project that I did recently. So this might not be exactly what you're getting at, but I'll interpret inferior broadly. So there is some evidence that suggests that AI reacts negatively to being treated poorly. So for example, this other project is looking at the role of warmth and dominance in human AI and AI interactions. And what we find here is that being warm to AI systems, again, even though these AI systems, they don't have feelings the way that humans do, being warm to them actually helps achieve better outcomes with them. Um, Whereas being cold with them, so if I'm really like if I were being really mean to ChatGPT and saying like not nice things or being, I don't know, even using bullying type language, then it wouldn't give me as good of results. Again, and even though it doesn't have feelings the way that humans do. So there is some evidence to that. I think there's a lot more research that would be really interesting to do in that realm, but hopefully that answers your question at least somewhat.
Thank you. Leroy was asking, what is your sense of human preference or perception in your research work? It seems possible that human AI synergy would be able to be measured, but might end up being different from preference. Is there a role for preference in considering what human AI synergy looks like?
Okay, I actually really like this question. So, yes, I think that human AI synergy it is different from preference. So, for example, someone might not like using an AI system, but an AI system might help them do a task better. Um, but I think there is a role in for preference in considering what human AI synergy looks like, and um, I think that can be really addressed through multidimensional performance metrics or through these process metrics. Because I do think it's important not just to do a task well, or not, it's important not just for a human AI system to do a task well, but I think it is important for a human to have some positive subjective experience of doing that task. So even if performance suddenly improved dramatically, but it made a human miserable, I'm not sure if that's something that we would want. And it's something that traditional measures of human AI synergy are not capturing, at least at this time.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. I saw that, Oren, you commented in the chat on that. Did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I was just like when you said when people are warmer to AI, you have better results. I was curious if you meant like is the AI performing better in practical areas? Like is it more accurate? Is it providing more detail? Or is it like human outcomes, like the user's evaluation of it? Do they feel like it's performing better or do they feel like better after interacting with it?
Oh, it's all the former. So it's all like, is it more accurate? Is the product better quality? So I think there's a lot of room for combining those metrics with preference. So with how did the user feel using the tool? Um, and that's something that has not really been addressed as rigorously. But I think it's a great avenue for future work.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and we're actually working on that too. So I'm very happy to have you here because, that's also one of the purposes of our program. So yeah, we need to talk more after this
Yeah.
call too. But I want to just come back quickly also to the question of Yakira, who asked, can you share more about the agency of AI used in the studies and how that impacts your results and recommendations?
This is a good question. So I would say that in most all of these studies, the AI system was really used as a tool by humans. So the AI system was not it had very low levels of agency, if you will. Um, that said, I think it could be really interesting to think about systems where the AI system, there were a few studies, not many, where the AI system was the one saying, okay, I'm gonna take care of this case. I'll delegate this task to a human. In most cases, the human was the one making the final decision. Um, but but I think it could be really interesting to think about what that looks like when the AI system is almost in the driver's seat, if you will. Um, and I'm not sure how that would impact the results. I think that's a good empirical question. And for recommendations, I think I think I would have to think more about that. But I think it's a really good question.
Ishika is asking, what kinds of measures do you think would help assess for synergy in the process? She's thinking about leveraging AI versus human skill sets at different parts of the process being one. Any other ideas?
Yes, so no, I think that using different skill, doing some skill mapping to different subtasks is a great first avenue. I think that's what we're doing. Um, and but beyond that, I think using a skill mapping is a great first set. I think doing something, it's something like we were talking about just a little bit earlier, but what tasks do humans, not only are they good at, but what tasks do they enjoy? And so incorporating preference in some way. Um, so letting humans still do the parts of the task that they find meaningful and enjoyable, while also using an AI system to maybe take care of the parts they find less meaningful and less enjoyable. And I think that there can be some really good work done in measuring the extent to which that is or is not captured in different collaborative processes.
Great. Harry also had a question about the process of conducting the review study. For example, how long did it take from conducting search to getting a response from the first submissions?
That's a good question. I don't remember off the top of my head. Um, so I would have to go through my inbox to answer that question. But I think the journal that we published with Nature Human Behavior, they share all of the review files online. So if you want to take a look, you can just go on the website. Um, One of the great things about Nature Human Behavior is that everything is very transparent. So we share all the code, we share our pre-registration, and we share actually what the reviewers said about our paper at each stage of the analysis. So if you want to go and take a look at that, you can as well.
Wonderful. Ben was asking, at first saying thanks for a great presentation. Also agree was a great presentation, so thanks for that again. And then Ben found your idea around mapping the relationship between AI capability improvements and subsequent human performance gains quite interesting. Ben is aware of many AI benchmarks, but are you aware of any HCI or HMT benchmarks? Is this a wide space area? What do you think?
Yes, so we're actually we have not really. There was one paper that proposed a few human AI benchmarks. It was somewhat recently. I would need to look up the paper, but I think that's a really promising avenue for future work. Um, I think the trouble, the bottleneck there is that human AI evaluations they take much longer and they're much more expensive than AI evaluations. Um, that said, I think it's a very promising avenue, and I think we can do things like make predictive models. So basically say, okay, what do we think? Um, how do we think these AI capabilities are going to map on to new human AI capabilities? And then train some predictive model around that and then validate it with other studies. There are so many studies being conducted now about human AI collaboration that I think you could actually train a decent model on that.
Yep. Very true, amazing. Also, because you were quoting other research, Isabel was asking if you could also please share the research evidence when you were talking about the cold warm treatment, how the LLM responds,
Oh,
depending on
yes.
how, if
Yes,
you have it, would be great to put it in the chat.
yes, I will do that. I'll do that now because that was one of my papers. So I have
Thank
access
you.
to that
Amazing.
one.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, here, let's see. Advancing AI negotiation. Oh, sorry, I see that my screen. You can just Google. I'll go back to the full screen. Um,
Maybe if
it's
you
just
say it, what we should Google, maybe we can
yes,
Google
I will
it.
put it in the chat. I
Yeah,
think.
you can probably turn off your screen sharing now if you want, so just focus on your face.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yes. So I'll just stop the share. Advancing AI negotiations. I think it's theory and evidence, or I think it's just a large, uh, there. Yes. Perfect.
Fantastic.
Advancing.
Then the last question I'm seeing here is from Ronald. And
Mhm.
Ronald was asking, did you find any research on human intelligence teams?
Mhm.
Ronald notices at individual level, you see productivity gains. At team level, those gains look to get lost.
Mhm. So we have seen some initial work on incorporating AI into teams. That's it. I think one of the reasons we don't see quite as much work on that is that it's harder to empirically test. So teams involve different numbers of people, um, which can be hard to coordinate in an experimental setting. And there are a lot of other things going on in teams. So, for example, the teams literature, it also looks at synergy. So it looks at synergy within the team. And that's typically defined as when the team, so when the product from the team is better than the product would have been if either member of the team had worked alone. And actually, what the teams literature finds is that team synergy is also quite rare. So it kind of aligns with the finding about human AI synergy. Um, so long-winded way to say we do find some initial research on incorporating AI into teams, but we see that in these studies, not only is there not synergy at the team AI level, but there's also not synergy at just the team level itself, typically, um, which I think points to the value of really focusing on the process, not just the processes by which humans collaborate with AI systems, but also the processes by which humans collaborate with each other.
Fantastic. What a wonderful note to end with. Thank you so much, Michelle. Also, big shout out to Oren. Thank you so much for organizing and hosting. And thank you to everyone for showing up and for engaging so deeply and asking such thought-provoking questions. And yeah, we hope to welcome you soon again. I do feel bad because we have a question from Helen. I mean, technically, we still have 2 minutes. Do you mind if we take it
Yes,
just
of
because I
course,
have
of course.
questions open? Any thoughts on the future self-continuity work being done at MIT and how the research you're doing on human AI synergy overlap?
Yes, I mean, I think there's so much exciting research about human AI collaboration being done at MIT right now. It's one of the reasons I feel very fortunate to be here. Um, and I think that that line of work is great, and we're actually hoping to collaborate with them in the future. So yes, hopefully that answers that last question. There's so much work to be done in this area. It's so good that so many people are are starting to work on it.
Yep, very much needed, very important. So thank you for being at the forefront and sharing your insights. We were very glad to have you. And yeah, everyone, hope to see you again in 2 weeks on February 19 for the next seminar series, which will be around benchmarks for AI. So see you next time and thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
And thank you,
everyone.
Michelle, of course.
Thank you.